All right.
Am I? Are you alright?
I'm all right.
Great news.
Yes.
I'm so excited about this story.
I'm so excited. I was like, I don't recognize it at all. Nothing.
I see.
Nothing
I
about
think
it.
I think people will recognize it once I start. I think especially British UK people will recognize the story.
I've got a vague memory of something,
Yeah.
but even if it's what I think it is, I still don't know anything about the story.
Mhm.
So I'm excited.
Great. Really, I love doing UK stories for our American listeners because I don't think it's something that they would have heard.
Yeah.
Like for instance, the Andrew Gosden case
Mm.
and the Essex murders and
Yeah.
things like that. I think we hear a lot of American crimes
Yeah.
because a lot of people cover them, but there's not really many that cover the UK crimes. So I do enjoy covering the crimes on our patch of this of Earth.
Yeah. On our turf.
Well, guess what I have done in preparation for this episode?
What?
I've actually researched a random blam. It's a random blams. Go. You don't have one
I
ready.
don't have a plan. Oh, I always do that. I go to look at like a random fact, and I always type in random blam.
I know. I do as well. I type in
What's
random blams.
wrong with me?
Become a thing.
Yeah, I've got a really random blam. I'm not even going
Oh,
to look
what
it up.
one that you found earlier, was it? Or
Well, I mean, it's only really relevant to me, so no one will probably care. But I'm going to say it anyway. Do you know? Yesterday, I met up with two of my most amazing friends that I haven't seen since I was 16. And we met up yesterday. They came to my house and we had like we didn't stop talking like all day. They arrived just after like midday and they were here through until 8 o'clock last night. And we just spoke so open and so honestly and like really from the heart. We're like literally we laughed, we cried several times. But we were surprised, we were enthusiastic, we were sad, we were happy. It was like every emotion. And what we came to realize was you can't put these things off because tomorrow is never guaranteed. If you're thinking, oh, it'd be so nice to see that person or it'd be so nice to do that, don't put it off. Just do it because we've rekindled our friendship and it's the most easy, comfortable, loving, safe relationship. And we've gone all those years without it. So I'm just telling everyone, putting it out there, don't wait for things, just do it because it could end up being the best thing that you ever did. So there you go.
absolutely, the thought of doing something is often worse than the actual doing it, isn't
Yeah.
it? And like when
It's
you've got
yeah.
something to do at work and like a horrible phone call to make, and you're like, oh, I really don't want to do it, and you put it off, and you make it so much bigger than it actually is. When
Yeah.
you eventually do it, you've racked yourself up into this nervous wreck,
Yeah.
and then you do it, and you're like, oh,
Yeah, that
what's
wasn't
that
that
about?
bad. Yeah,
Absolutely.
exactly. You in fact we actually had this conversation yesterday amongst many, but we said like you end up overthinking things and then that overthinking then creates that anxiety
Yeah.
and you then after you've done it and you've pulled the band-aid off, you then think actually you either end up thinking that wasn't that bad or you think
Yeah.
actually that was brilliant. I'm
Yeah.
so glad I did that. Why the hell did I wait? But
Or you think, Jesus Christ, that was horrendous. Like
yeah,
when I did that zip line thing, I did that Wales zip line thing, and I was a nervous wreck. And I was like, no, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. And I was so nervous, and I eventually did it, and it was horrendous. I hated every second of it.
Yeah, but now you know not to do that ever again.
I might never do that again.
Yeah.
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 That's we took the kids actually for Hayley's birthday. We went to this like inflatable water park thing. It's all on the water. It's this big inflatable thing. And I am terrified of water, and I don't know where it stemmed from. I'm terrified of water. I can swim, but especially if the children are in water, I hate it. I get so anxious and stuff. But they were loving it, and they were like going down these slides, really like massive slides, go whoosh, and then like they've obviously got life vests on and stuff, so they'd go under and plop straight back up. But it was still terrifying to me, and I kept thinking, oh, I really want to go down one of these slides. I really want to go down one of these slides, but I was so nervous, and I didn't want to disappoint the kids because they'd been doing it. And I got to the top of this slide, and I sat there for a good 7 minutes, just trying to work myself up to doing it. And I was getting so frustrated with myself, going, "You fucking just do it, man!
Just do it!
Just do it! Just do it!" And the kids were going, "You can do it! I believe in you!" And Hayley and Joyce was like, "Just fucking do it!"
For the love of God, just do it.
It's 7 minutes, come on. And Hayley was like so encouraging. And I thought, I just couldn't let her down, because what sort of a role model is that? Not facing your fears. And I eventually did, and it was absolutely fine. I don't know what the issue was, but fucking hell, was it just terrifying. I don't know why.
It's going over that lip, isn't it? It's going over that lip and going, right, I'm doing it.
Yeah.
From overthinking it and questioning yourself and going, oh my God,
3,
I'm terrified.
2, 1, go.
Yeah, you've just got to go. Do you know what? I've already, what's the word?
Established.
Established. That's it. Thank you. I've already established that I'm shit scared. So what's the point in sitting here and constantly thinking, I'm so scared. I can't do this because I'm so scared. Yeah, just tear the Band-Aid off and just do it.
Just do it. Right. Well, I've got an actual random blam for everybody.
Okay, go for it.
And mine is about trees.
Oh, nice. I love a tree.
And I found out that I think they're pronounced acacia trees.
Yeah.
Yeah. Acacia trees in Africa can communicate with each other by emitting gases to warn other trees of danger, making them produce a protective toxic against animals.
That's cool. I feel like I communicate that way. If I'm unhappy, I release a toxic gas to let people know not to come close.
Yeah, yours warns against people, not animals. Yeah, animals are welcome. People are not.
I'm an acacia tree.
Oh, right. On that, random blams done.
Done. I'm so excited for this episode. Honestly, I can't even tell you. I've been actually thinking about it all week because I love it when you put a teaser on the socials and I see it and I was like, I don't know what this is.
Yeah, I don't like giving it away. And I often do sometimes where I put the hashtags and things like that. But I thought, I'm not doing it on this one. And I just literally put that picture up and I thought, if you know, you know.
I prefer it. Yeah. I prefer it like that because I think, if there's no like taglines to it or anything like that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I don't know what it is. All right. Well, tell me, yeah.
Okay, well, you've probably guessed by the title. It's called The Spy in the Bag. I'm going to do it. So let's do it.
All right, do it.
Morning. That is literally how we're going to sound throughout the entire episode.
Yeah, sorry about that.
But we've tried everything. The internet, for whatever reason in the UK, is just appalling.
Yeah, it seems to be a countrywide issue.
I thought you were going to say something else, Kate.
What do you mean?
Language.
I would never.
Yeah, so we have tried our hardest to fix it, but it's either a small amount of glitching in the episodes, which we will try and edit out, or no episode. So
yeah,
those are your choices.
We've delayed it as much as we could. We've tried everything. We've tried different routers. We've tried moving routers. We've tried moving rooms, everything, deleting things off of our computers, everything, and it's just everywhere at the moment. So we're just going to do it. It might be a little bit glitchy, and if it is,
embrace it.
Yeah,
just embrace it.
Just go with it, because there's nothing we can do at the moment. So sorry about that.
All right.
Yeah. All right.
So without further ado, then this is the spy in the bag.
Yeah.
Gareth Williams was born on the 26th of September in 1978 in Wales. But he wasn't your average typical child. He was academically miles above his peers, and even not his peers, just miles above some adults.
I bet he could have sorted out our internet.
Babes. He was considered a mathematic genius, and he loved a problem. He loved to solve riddles and puzzles, and he would spend every spare moment that he could on a computer. And this was when the computers were quite recent, quite a new thing, and he just was obsessed with computers. At school, he excelled to the point that teachers would actually ask him for his advice on some problems that they might have had. So, for instance, his school teacher once asked him to help put together a spreadsheet on the computer to help mark absent pupils. Almost like they wanted some sort of algorithm put in together that the teacher just couldn't figure out. And the teacher said he just had the fastest brain he'd ever seen. It would just instantly be like, oh, I know what to do. At the age of 10, he passed his GCSEs.
No way.
Which is, in the UK, is something that you take when you're 15, 16 years old. After having studied for a very long time for them.
Yeah, so at 10, he wouldn't have even...
He'd still be in primary school.
Wouldn't even be old enough to be in high school.
At his age, you normally do your SATs.
Yeah.
Which are a precursor to GCSEs.
Jeez.
He also completed his A-levels at college by the age of 13 and had gotten a first in his university degree by the age of 17. Teachers described him as socially awkward, a loner, a child that found it difficult to bond and interact with others. He was essentially a young child in a young adult world for the majority of his childhood. So he didn't fit in. He was doing his college when he was like 10.
Yeah.
So he just didn't fit in. He didn't have these relationships with other people. He didn't have any close friends. And that was something that would remain that way throughout his life. But that doesn't mean he wasn't well liked. He was a very well liked individual. He just didn't really have that close connection with anybody. He was a very nerdy, loner teenage boy. And he didn't have a problem with that. That was just how he was. He liked his own space. He liked his own company. His whole world was computers. His friend was his computers.
Oh.
And his teachers said, looking back, that they would say that he was probably on the autistic spectrum.
Yeah.
And they described him as a mathematical savant because he was just so incredibly intelligent.
Just a side note, if you haven't listened to Sarah's episode on savant syndrome.
Acquired savant syndrome, yeah.
That is a great episode.
Yeah. So by the time he'd finished university and started a second degree, he'd moved to Cambridge and he was studying his second degree at Cambridge University. His remarkable intelligence and talent with computers had been noticed. And he was recruited by GCHQ. And GCHQ is the government communications headquarters. and it is located in Cheltenham in Gloucestershire. It's something I can never pronounce.
So please say that again. What did you say?
Gloucestershire. Gloucestershire. Gloucester. There's too many letters.
Do you want to have another go?
I can't even blame that on the glitchy internet, can I?
No. Well, we could actually.
Gloucestershire.
Gloucestershire.
Why is there an extra "er" in there?
I don't know. You've made it harder for yourself. Gloucestershire.
No, if you look at actually, I'm saying if you look at how it's spelt, mine is in red underline because I've obviously spelled it wrong. I'm saying it's spelled Gloucestershire, but it's telling me I've spelled it wrong.
You're saying it wrong. You spelled it wrong.
Anyways.
Oh, love that.
They were located in Cheltenham in Gloucestershire, and they are the world-leading intelligence and cybersecurity guys. They essentially protect all of our shit. So GCHQ was originally established after the First World War as the Government Code and Cipher School, which is much cooler. That's a much cooler name.
That is
the
very
Government
cool.
Code and Cipher School. And it was known under that name until 1946. During the Second World War, it was located at Bletchley Park, where if you have watched the film, fuck me, what's it called? The Imitation Game, where he breaks the Enigma. It's called the Enigma. This was actually the GCHQ, or the Government Code and Cipher School, was responsible for breaking the German Enigma code and practically ending the war.
Cool.
So it's responsible for keeping us safe, for cracking terrorist codes, and for passing along information to MI5 and MI6 for them to investigate. Because every aspect of any information that is passed across the internet is coded. So it's their job to unravel that code and find out if there is any nefarious activity happening. Word. So, loving all things puzzling, coding, computers, Gareth literally jumped at the chance to work at GCHQ, and he fully accepted the job offer. His work there included developing software, analysing patterns of communication, and essentially cracking terrorist activity. And he absolutely excelled at this. He was considered an asset to the team. And so for the first time in his life, he was surrounded by like-minded people. This is a place where a lot of, genius computer people worked. They worked there for a reason, because they were incredibly intelligent. And he was very happy working there. In 2010, Gareth was headhunted by MI6 and transferred from GCHQ, and then propelled into a completely different environment with a very different set of colleagues. So MI6 is the Secret Intelligence Service. The tagline says, "Our people work secretly around the world to make the UK safer and more prosperous." And it was said that Gareth was basically like a translator for MI6. So he would translate the work of GCHQ, so translating this almost geek computer terminology and this, coding aspect into something that these field agents at MI6 could understand. And he was seconded out there for like a 6-month period. So he was now no longer working with like-minded people. These introverted, computer-loving people that, Gareth was used to working with and that Gareth identified with. He was now in a world full of field agent, like active spies, people that had the ability to communicate very well, to charm others, to blend into social situations, and to communicate effectively with anyone and everyone, which essentially was the complete opposite to Gareth, who was incredibly socially awkward. So headquarters for the MI6 are located in London. So Gareth was moved from his place in Cheltenham to a little flat in Pimlico in London, where MI6 there's like a street near MI6 where they housed all of its like spies. They were like safe houses, I guess.
And what's that address?
It's in Pimlico. And so even this change of location was out of his comfort zone, because he was now in London, which is a very miles away from his Welsh childhood, and his location in Cheltenham. So it came as no surprise that after only a few weeks of working at MI6, Gareth requested a transfer back to GCHQ, and was in the process of speaking to his former landlady and getting his accommodation back in Cheltenham. Before his transfer back, Gareth was sent to Las Vegas to attend the Black Hat Convention, which every time I heard that, I kept thinking they were saying Black Cat.
Yeah.
And I was like, that sounds really cool. But it's actually Black Hat Convention. And it's one of the world's largest cybersecurity conferences. It is a conference where people are told to bring a burner phone because hackers were lurking everywhere.
No way.
Yeah. It's a conference where hackers would be on the look for new recruits, new talent to join their ranks, but also a conference more for this reason, but for law enforcement to learn about the new techniques being used by hackers to try and break through online security. So Gareth was there to try and, pick up any information that he could, really. And after the conference, Gareth was due to fly home, but he decided to take some extra time off, presumably because he hated working at MI6, and he stayed in New York so he could attend the DEFCON conference, which also sounds incredibly cool.
Yeah.
But it's not death, DEATH, it's DEF, DEF.
All right, DEFCON.
Yeah. And it's basically another hacking and cybersecurity conference, but they are like the world leading largest conferences that you can go to. He returned back to London on the 11th of August, and he was due back to work on the 15th of August to give a conference about the conferences that he'd attended. So when he was back, he then spent the weekend in London shopping. He visited Harrods and he bought some expensive clothing for his sister, whom he'd spoken to over the weekend. And essentially he just got himself ready to get back to work on the 15th. However, the 15th of August approached and Gareth did not return to work. Gareth, who was a stickler for rules, he was very reliable guy. He did not call to let anybody know that he wouldn't be attending work that day. A whole week passed without a single word or sighting of Gareth. And it wasn't until his sister spoke to a colleague at MI6 about not hearing from him, as he turned up to work, that sort of thing, that they sort of went, oh, come to think of it, we've not seen him either. And they then called the police. On the 23rd of August, the police arrived at Gareth's central London flat to do a welfare check. It was a quiet residential road in an old Victorian building. Gareth's front door was locked and there was no answer when the police knocked. So they gain entry and are immediately struck by the heat as it floods out of his small flat. Despite it being the middle of August, the heating is turned up to its fullest. As police make their way around Gareth's flat, they're struck by its neatness. It's immaculate. Nothing is out of place. Everything has a home. He was a keen cyclist, and all of his his bike was neatly laid out with all of his cycling equipment. It was very, very neat. There was literally nothing on the countertops in his kitchen, which I commend him for, because where do you store all your shit if not on the countertop?
I don't think people have as much shit. I think that's what it comes down to, because I'd never be able to put all my shit in the cupboard.
No.
Not even close.
So in the front room, there is a little coffee table. On the coffee table, there are a couple of mobile phones. One of them is intact, and one of them has the battery and SIM card laid out quite precisely on the table. There are a few laptops dotted around, which nothing unusual for a man that works with computers.
Yeah.
There are a couple of bright yellow North Face hard-shelled suitcases in the flat also,
Mm-hmm.
which, again, wasn't unusual because Gareth had not long moved there and he was planning to move back to Cheltenham on the 10th of September.
Mm-hmm.
As detectives continued to look around, they noticed a door leading off the hallway that was shut. So they decided to investigate. They opened this door, which turns out leads into the bathroom. It's a small bathroom with just a toilet, a sink, and a bath. However, the bath shower is completely drawn, like the shower curtain is completely drawn around the bath.
Oh, I hate that because you never know if there's someone or something behind it.
Yeah. Too many horror movies with the people lurking behind a shower curtain.
Yeah.
So police pull back the shower curtain and they find a bright red North Face holdall bulging at the sides, just sitting in the middle of the bath. Its zip is closed. Both zips pulled to the centre of the bag and padlocked together with a small Yale padlock, and it was looped through the eyelets of each zip. Like, the little toggles of the zip.
Yeah.
The officer stepped forward to remove the bag from the confines of the bathtub and is struck with how heavy it is. It isn't too heavy for him to lift, but it does have a lot of weight to it. His intentions were to lift it out of the tub and take it somewhere where they could better investigate it. But after lifting the bag away from the bottom of the tub, the officers saw liquid had pooled underneath the bag and was leaking out.
Ugh.
The motion of lifting this bag out of the bath, just momentarily, released a stench so awful that the officers had to leave the room. When they come back in, they bring with them a knife to cut open the bag to reveal its weighty, smelly contents.
Oh, God.
The officers cut the side of the bag open, which runs parallel to the zip, and they didn't have to look too hard to see what was inside. Through the slit he had just made, the officer could see quite clearly the decaying face of a man.
No.
Squashed, I can't even say squashed enough, crammed into this North Face holdall, naked, sat atop the key that belonged to the padlock on the outside of the bag, was Gareth Williams.
Oh, no.
His body already decaying from the heat and the length of time that he had been dead in this bag. It was determined that Gareth had been dead since the 16th of August, 7 days prior.
Oh,
but
God.
The mystery wasn't so much as when, but how did he die? How did Gareth end up locked inside a duffel bag with the key inside with him? Was it suicide or was it murder? An inquest was held into his death, unlike any other. No details of Gareth's work was allowed to be shared due to the top secret nature. Witnesses speaking on his behalf had to appear behind a curtain so as not to be seen or their work compromised. What came out of this inquest was even more perplexing than the case the police already faced. On investigating Gareth's flat, police found £20,000 worth of women's clothing. All high-end designer pieces. High-end, massive, high-heeled shoes still in their box. Loads and loads of women's wigs. There was a woman's wig that was hanging on the back of one of the chairs in the front room. A friend of Gareth said that he attended evening classes on dress design as he was keenly into fashion, and the wigs apparently were from some sort of fancy dress party. And it was said that the women's clothes were apparently for his sister.
I mean, even if they were for him, who cares?
Well, I'll tell you who cares.
Oh.
The phone found in the apartment that had recently been reset back to factory settings, and another one that hadn't. And this one contained a thorough search history, including searches to hardcore bondage sites. And this really derailed the investigation. The death of as media dubbed him, a spy, in such mysterious circumstances became headline news, but not for the right reasons. The British media did what the British media did best. They publicised scandalous headlines about his personal and private life. His life was splashed all across the news. The cross-dressing, gay bar frequenting, drag show fanatic spy that loved hardcore bondage had died in a sex game gone wrong.
Oh, God. It's so irritating, isn't it? People just, the media jump into conclusions and getting their heads up their arse.
Absolutely. But there could have been a reason for it, and we'll discuss that later.
Oh.
Witness testimony at the inquiry as well, from Gareth's previous landlady in Cheltenham. So she came forward during the inquest to say that while living in Cheltenham, it wasn't a flat that he lived in, it was a room that was in the landlady's house, like a top floor room. She and her husband had woken up around 1:30 a.m. to cries of help. So she and her husband followed these cries and they led to Gareth's room. When they entered, they found him on his bed, in his underwear, with both hands tied to the bedpost above his head. Gareth had said that he wanted to see if he could get out, but the landlady said that she believed it was sexually related. So it was believed, based on this, that Gareth had locked himself in the bag during an erotic moment, either alone or with a partner, but he had quickly suffocated and died. But this raised many, many, many questions.
So many questions.
Many questions. A confined spaces expert was called in to test the possibility that Gareth could have gotten himself in the bag and locked it. This was trialled about 400 times in various different ways. The expert was a similar build to Gareth, but he was actually shorter. He was able to get himself in the bag. However, he wasn't able to fully lock it in the manner that it was locked. Now, so when this first come out, so many people on the internet, because there's a video on the internet of him doing it.
Oh, okay.
And so many people were like, oh, this is how you do it. You can do it this way. It can be done. And there was a video that showed a young girl, not young, well, teens, early 20s, doing it, getting in the bag and locking herself in. She was able to actually loop the lock in through the eyelets and lock it. However, this expert, he trialed it in the bath, which is where it was, because that confined the space even more. The fact that he was in the bath, and he was able to get himself in the bath, but he wasn't able to do it without putting his hands all over the wall, putting his feet all over the bath, sweating profusely, leaving all of his DNA everywhere. If Gareth had indeed locked himself in the bag, there was no way he could have done it without leaving some form of evidence. And police found no evidence in his bathroom. There were not a single fingerprint. There was no single trace of DNA at all.
That's more bizarre than anything you've told me about so far. So I have come across some sources that say that there was very minuscule pieces of DNA that were found, but they were so tiny that they couldn't be used. They were just irrelevant. So perhaps they were cleaned. Perhaps the bathroom had been cleaned, which, if you... because that screams second party, doesn't it? Because they're wiping their own DNA and their own fingerprints and all that off, but they're also wiping off the DNA and the fingerprints of the person that lives there. Yeah.
So his fingerprints were found in the rest of the house, just not the bathroom, which is weird. But some people, there's two very strong arguments, which is very interesting with this case. And some people say, well, you don't always leave behind DNA. If you pick up a glass and put it down, doesn't mean to say that you will leave your fingerprints there. You don't automatically leave fingerprints on whatever you touch.
Okay.
And the evidence suggests that no one else was in the bathroom because there are no other fingerprints. That is the other argument. So the argument that someone was there and wiped it up versus, well, the evidence says that no one was there. But
I don't think that. I think I understand it if you pick up a glass or a cup,
yeah,
and take a drink and then put it down. But we're talking about a whole room, and a room that you're more likely to be expelling bodily fluids.
Yes.
And you're more likely to be naked in that room.
There would have been hair and stuff in there, but
skin.
Yeah. It was also determined that Gareth would have only lasted about 2 or 3 minutes being in that bag before suffocating, because the carbon dioxide that you exhale would have quite very, very quickly replaced the oxygen.
Yeah.
Rendering him unconscious in about 2 or 3 minutes. So they said that perhaps Gareth had wanted to get in this bag for whatever reason, but hadn't realised just how quickly he would succumb, because you think you'd have longer than 2 or 3 minutes in a bag. But it just didn't seem feasible that Gareth had done this to himself. His family all conceded that there was no way he would have committed suicide. Yes, he was unhappy at his current job, but he was due to return to GCHQ and Cheltenham, where he was happiest. He had holidays planned. He was an intensely private person, but his family all said that he wasn't gay. They also said that he, by nature, wasn't a risk taker. He was a very calculated, methodical, logical person. And if he had wanted to do these bondage things, he would always have had planned an escape route, like a fail-safe. He would have at least taken a penknife into the bag with him in case he got into some sort of emergency. So if Gareth hadn't entered the bag of his own free will, then that must mean it was murder. Had Gareth stumbled upon something that he shouldn't have while working at MI6? Had he come across someone or said something to the wrong person at the conferences? If he had been murdered, the killer would have had to have cleaned all the surfaces of the bathroom once they were done, then pull the shower curtain round, turn the light off, close the bathroom door, and then pop the heating on high. The coroner at the inquest believed that that is exactly what happened. She believed that the heating had been turned up to high in order to speed up decomposition so that the cause of death couldn't be ascertained. During the investigation, police found no evidence in the bathroom, none on the bag, none on the lock, none on the door handle of the bathroom, and none on the shower curtain. If Gareth had been murdered, the coroner deemed that Gareth had most likely been alive when he was placed in the bag and had died of suffocation after a few minutes, or died from a fast-acting poison. But it could never be ascertained if there were any bruising on his body from being forcefully placed inside the bag because he had so badly decomposed. Gareth's actual cause of death could never be determined either. Trace amounts, and when I say trace amounts, I mean trace amounts of alcohol and GHB were found in his system, but it was believed that these occurred naturally during the process of decomposition.
All of those. Yeah, I've heard that before, actually.
Yeah, I've heard that before. Yeah. Gareth's cause of death was listed as unlawfully killed by suffocation. However, underneath that, it says suspected to be accidental by Metropolitan Police. There was a huge divide at the inquest, with police following the evidence.
Yeah.
The evidence says that nobody else was in that room. The evidence says that Gareth liked visiting bondage sites and that he'd handcuffed himself to a bed. So the evidence points to the fact that he potentially locked himself in the bag. Whereas the coroner was a female, and she went, that don't make no fucking sense. None.
Coroner was Sarah Harvey.
Yeah.
Who went, wait a minute.
No, that's not what happened, clearly. But the police very much were along the lines of, this was an accidental sex game gone wrong, as is what the media portrayed.
I do see a lot of cases where the police will go to that as, it seems like it's a bit of a, we can wrap this up.
Well, yeah, absolutely. It's an easier option, isn't it?
I think so, yeah. I mean, I'm sure that's not the case for all police, but it does seem to happen a lot where they're very quick to go, they're gay, or they're a gay man.
They're into something different.
Yeah, they're into something that I don't understand. So it's probably that.
Yeah. But one other crucial piece of evidence came up at the inquiry, something that no one can explain. Why did it take Gareth's employer, MI6, the secret services, 7 days to report him missing? He was scheduled to appear in 3 different meetings that week and failed to show to any of them, and not a single person thought to question it. Now, this is an organisation that works in dangerous environments and categorises its employees into risks. Gareth was deemed as low risk, but they still didn't think it was odd that he hadn't shown up. They didn't try and call him when he failed to show up. And so Gareth's manager was called to the inquest to answer this exact question, and he was dubbed Mr. G for security reasons, and he was placed behind a curtain. And when asked, Mr. G admitted to the failure of following simple protocol regarding staff absences. Okay. These are the people in charge of the nation's security. Just FYI, they don't forget to follow a procedure. He offered up no explanation other than, yeah, we should have followed the procedure, but we didn't.
Drop the ball on that. Sorry.
Yeah, whoops.
Yeah.
They didn't report him missing until Gareth's sister contacted them to ask if he'd been at work. However, she contacted them at 11:30 a.m. and MI6 still did nothing with this information for 5 hours. It was only then that they called. They literally dialed 999 to report him missing, right? And this again is incredibly bizarre because MI6 has a fucking hotline directly to police. You know, they've got their own.
MI5 cancel out.
Yeah.
Like the local Bobby. Surely.
If there's an issue, they have their own way of dealing with it. They literally don't call 999 and go, excuse me, one of our spies has been killed.
Can you go and have a look?
I think one of my spies is in a situation. He's been missing for about a week, but nobody's actually noticed.
Whoops.
Whoopsie-daisies. And MI6 as well were located a 5-minute walk from Gareth's flat, yet no one went to check on him themselves. So did they wait as long as possible to report him missing so that his body would decompose and forensics would find it more difficult to find the source of his death? On the last day of the inquest, it came to light that there had been 9 memory sticks in Gareth's locker that hadn't been handed over to police. MI6 had checked them themselves and deemed them not to be of any interest or contain any information that could point to his death. So they didn't think to mention it, and they didn't bother handing them over because they was like, oh, it's irrelevant. This is my information, not yours. However, I found out that any form of memory devices were strictly prohibited at MI6 for obvious reasons, because if any information had been stored on those devices and lost or been put into the wrong hands, that could be a breach of security. So, and unless he'd been given clearance to have those memory sticks, which it didn't look like he had. There was no information anywhere to say that he'd been given this sort of clearance. And it was said that if Gareth had breached this security measure, that he would have been dismissed instantly. But MI6 found these memory cards and thought, it doesn't matter, you know, I won't bother telling anyone.
Nah.
It has never been revealed what happened to Gareth, and I don't believe it ever will be. But police have come across many, many obstacles during their investigation by MI6. There's a lot of information that they aren't allowed to ask. There's a lot of information that they don't have to answer. One police investigator said, normally, in a situation like this, I've got all of these questions that I know I can ask, and they have to be answered. When you go into MI6, they don't have to answer anything.
Yeah.
They don't have to give that information.
And don't they know it?
And don't they fucking know it? So also there's a lot as well, when you dig into this, there's a lot about Russian involvement and different politics that go way over my head massively. I didn't understand hardly any of it, but in all likelihood, Gareth probably uncovered something that he wasn't supposed to, and he was murdered. So
I like the way you emphasized he probably did something, found out something that he shouldn't, and he was murdered.
He was absolutely murdered. But let me tell you the conspiracy theories.
Okay.
So, was this murder of a so-called spy, or was it a sex game gone wrong? So here are some possible theories about what happened.
Is one of them aliens?
No. Gareth
can one of them be?
I'll pop it in at the end. Gareth possibly uncovered a Russian mole that had been in GCHQ. Gareth had possibly uncovered a string of Russian money coming into England that had been obtained via criminal means and had to be killed. Gareth was headhunted by the Russians and refused to become a double agent and was therefore killed. Gareth had something called claustrophilia, a person that needs to feel claustrophobic in order to reach sexual gratification. Gareth squeezed himself into this holdall, locked it on the outside despite being inside it, slipped the key that would have been outside back on the inside despite it being locked, and popped it underneath himself and had suffocated.
Okay.
Before you make up your mind, let me just tell you a few other stories that might influence your decision.
Can you just say about the aliens?
Oh, option number 7. Gareth was put in the bag by aliens.
Interesting.
So, I was so worried about digging into this case. I didn't want to delve too far into it.
Do you know what? I thought exactly the same thing when you were saying about it. I was like, no. Sarah, what have you done?
No. If I go missing and end up in a holdall, you fucking know why. It wasn't. It was probably a sex game gone wrong.
They won't come for me because I'm the one that thinks it was aliens. I'm just saying that now. I think it was aliens all the way. Nothing to do with the government. Leave me alone.
Yeah, it wouldn't have been the Russians. It surely wasn't.
No, they're lovely.
So what I uncovered whilst doing some research, in 1994, Stephen Milligan, a former Conservative MP who had previously worked in journalism in Moscow, was found dead in his home on his kitchen table. His body was naked, save for a pair of women's stockings and suspenders, and he had a black bin lined up over his head. Around his neck was a length of electrical cord, which had apparently been used to strangle him, and in his mouth was a single segment of orange. It was believed that his death was due to a fatal accident while carrying out a solo sex act. But some believe it had all the hallmarks of the KGB. While working as a journalist in Russia years prior, he had reportedly uncovered, quote, loads of dodgy things.
Loads of dodgy shit.
That's a quote directly from the Daily Mail.
Brilliant.
Loads of dodgy things.
Loads
So
of
the KGB is a very Russian
it's like the Russian MI5,
word,
isn't it?
Yeah, if you break down what KGB means, it's a very Russian word that I've got no business trying to pronounce. However, it translates to the Committee for State Security. So it is essentially like an MI5 or MI6. And they do come up quite a lot in these stories. So Steve Milligan's death was put down to essentially misadventure.
Right.
And that it was a sex act gone wrong. He'd trussed himself up, put on these stockings and suspenders, popped in a single segment of orange into his mouth.
I'm glad you said into his mouth.
Yes, into his mouth. Popped a black bin liner over his head and autoerotic asphyxiated himself by accident.
Okay.
In March 1990, a 28-year-old Jonathan Moyle, who was an editor for the magazine Defense Helicopter World, that's what the magazine's called. He was a former RAF helicopter pilot. He was found dead in his hotel room in Santiago. He was found dead in a wardrobe, hanging with a pillowcase over his head. His death was labelled as autoerotic asphyxia gone wrong. His wallet and briefcase were missing, and the rail that he was hanging from was shorter than him. It was only around 5 foot off the ground, whereas he was 5'8". His father pushed for more investigation to be done because they went, oh, it's a sex game gone wrong. And his dad obviously didn't think that. And after they did some more investigating, they found a needle mark on his shin and sedatives found in his stomach, and it was then labelled as unlawful killing. It was believed that he was a British spy who was investigating a company thought to be modifying a readily obtainable type of commercial helicopter for the Iraqi military, and then was therefore taken out. But there are a lot more stories about people dying that are associated to the world of spies, I guess you would say. That are killed in this, I say killed, potentially killed themselves by accident, but all in this manner. And that's apparently a hallmark of the KGB. And it's to throw people off the scent. They make it as bizarre as possible.
Yeah. And go,
so that,
why would they?
Yeah, if I wanted to kill
like
someone,
that?
I'd just kill him. I wouldn't stuff him in a bag.
Put a piece of orange in his gob.
Yeah, that's so weird. Why would I do that? So it's thought that is the hallmark of the KGB. There are a few others, but honestly, like I said, I was real scared to be digging into it too further.
Yeah, let's not go into it too much. But I mean, I've just got to say, look how many times James Bond, you've seen him try to be killed.
Yeah. No.
We know they go after spies.
Well, Gareth wasn't a spy. He was a code breaker. That was his job. So it was the media that labelled him a spy. He wasn't technically a spy.
Yeah.
He was a code breaker, but he was still involved in that line of work, that world. So yeah, I didn't want my search history to be too detailed about looking into these spies' deaths. So that's
So you've done all this, and now we're both having problems with the computer and our internet connection.
Oh my gosh,
they're listening to us right now, man.
That's so right, because I had a similar problem when I was doing the Poltergeist episode and the episode about the Roland Doe exorcism, where fucking shit just kept happening. When I got possessed,
you got possessed, and on his stomach was written "No school,
no school."
I know that. Yeah,
gosh.
Yeah. Well, they
so
yeah.
We risk our lives to bring you these episodes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not taking this one because I think it was the UFO.
I think it was aliens.
Yeah, I think it was aliens.
Okay,
yeah.
But So I didn't want to go into it too far, but you can see the pattern I've created for you to have a look at. But Gareth's death has never been explained, and the coroner strongly ruled that her opinion was foul play. But like I said, detectives believe otherwise. So aside from it being aliens, I would like to know your opinion.
I definitely 100% think he was murdered. Did his family confirm that he was like into some sort of bondage? Does anyone actually confirm that?
No, apart from the landlady saying that saying that they found him on his bed with his hands cuffed behind him.
Yeah, but how do we know that
exactly
got to her as well?
Exactly. The truth will never come out. It never will. Because there's too much at stake, because if he was taken out, then that leads to a whole can of worms, doesn't it? And if he was taken out, was it the British government that did it? Was it MI6? Why on earth did it take them a week to if he hadn't turned up from work? They would have rung and be like, "You're right, mate."
I think somewhere down the line he was a necessary loss. I think there was some kind of, I don't know, like something along the lines of like, you need to cooperate and make this happen. Otherwise, we're going to start picking your boys off one by one. And then it was a bit of a, like he was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. Yeah, collateral damage. Yeah. He was in the wrong place at the wrong time because he was the computer guy, or he was one of the guys that issued with like code and things like that. Yeah. How do we know? I mean, I just literally the other day watched a spy film, and it was exactly this. Like he was a computer guy.
Yeah.
And then he was given access to the system to do his job. And they wanted him to download a certain program or whatever onto this memory device, which he did. But then obviously they were coming after him because they wanted the memory drive. So it's screaming those kind of vibes to me.
I feel like Gareth as a person was probably on the spectrum, and I think that he was a stickler for right and wrong. Yeah. I think that there was no grey area for him. No. I think that he was very I'm not allowed to do that, so I'm not going to do that.
Yeah. But why would he just have had those memory devices in his locker at work, and like everything else was like at home with him and all that? Might it have been something where he thought, I'm not doing it, taking the drives out, chucking them in his locker?
Perhaps.
Going home.
I do absolutely believe that it's murder, because the way that the bag was done up, there's a zip, there's two zips, and they were met in the middle.
Yep.
And this little lock was placed through the eyelet. So if you're in the bag already crouched up, to get, you can absolutely do it up, but then you're left with your hand and a gap. You have to try and move the zip from the inside to get it closed. But then how do you put the lock on?
If you had enough time and you had enough room, neither of which he had.
Nope.
If you had space in the bag and the bag was a bit baggy, like you could probably,
you can grab it.
Yeah, you could manipulate it from the other side of the material.
Yeah.
But he's a like full-grown man.
He was very tall, very slim. He was a keen cyclist.
And he was so squashed in that bag. That bag would have been pulled taut.
Yeah, absolutely. It was like bulging. And also, why pull the curtain round? Why shut the door? Why do it in the bath?
Yeah, and why would he put his heating up on full?
Yeah. Yeah, it's very, very much that was done to speed up decomposition. The door was closed as well. The curtain, all that is to hide something. Yeah. You don't pull the curtain around and close the door if you're not trying to hide something.
I agree. Definitely in my head, definitely it's murder.
Yeah.
And I honestly believe it would have had something to do with his job somewhere along the line. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely.
KGB, MI5, no idea. Aliens could just just as easily been aliens.
Yeah.
Don't know. I'll tell you something though, it weren't Mothman.
No, it wasn't. He would never. He would never.
He would never do that. Not my Mothman.
No.
Mothman. Oh, I haven't said that for ages. Feels good.
All right. Yeah. Well, that's there. Now you have it. That's the reason I put the bag up.
That's brilliant. I mean, it's not brilliant. It's really sad, but it's. I would like to know what people think.
Yeah,
I really would like to know what people think. But be careful, people.
Yeah, don't
let's use code. Use code.
No, because they can crack it.
Oh shit! Tell Mothman. He'll indeed never turn his back on us. Yeah. Oh yeah. No, I'd like to know what you guys think. Whether you think it was murder or whether you do think it was a genuine accident. I mean, I can't say. Even if I've ever in my life thought about, partaking in like super scusties.
Let me just tell you what claustrophilia is.
Well, I was going to say, actually, I was going to say, oh, I think I've got that, until you said, and like, they're not able to like perform sexually without that urge. And it's like, no, I don't have that. But I do feel comfort in small spaces. Like if I'm in bed, I'll put the pillow over the top of my head so that my head's on the mattress and the pillow's just rested over the top. Or I'll go right under the duvet. I'd feel quite comfortable being in a cupboard and shutting the door.
Yeah, I mean, some people
don't do this, but
it's that element of safe protection.
Yeah, I'll cover my face quite a lot. I'll pull my hood up.
Yeah.
And then pull the sides of the hood round.
Yeah.
Because I like feeling closed in.
Yeah. But I don't think you go quite. That one woman actually said, said it's really, I can't remember what analogy she used, but she said to jump from handcuffing yourself to the bed to stuffing yourself into a bag is like someone
huge escalation fast.
It's like saying someone that kicked a dog once is going to become a serial killer. Like that's the level of escalation.
Yeah.
So to assume that someone who likes to handcuff himself to the bed is going to do that, it's a complete leap. It's not like in the same realms.
No, I mean, I agree. I think, playing around with things like handcuffs or, being tied up and things like that, that's not that out of the park. Do you know what I mean? You sort of think, oh, yeah, I mean, most people have tried.
Who hasn't handcuffed themselves to the bed and then left and forgotten the key? Had to crawl out for help.
Quickly. No, but I mean, and I can happily say, which I just did, I quite like being in small spaces and things like that. However, I can honestly say I would find it very uncomfortable to be that squashed up and get in a bag. And I've never had the urge to get in a bag, especially not in the bath.
No, they said as well, when your oxygen is replaced by carbon dioxide, that creates heat. So it would have been incredibly hot in there, incredibly quickly. So it would have just been.
Also, if you were doing it, what would your reason be to get in the bag but do it in the bath? What would your possible reason be? There's no reason that I can think of straight away. However, if I was going to murder someone by stuffing them in this bag or killing them and then stuffing them in the bag, doing it up, and I was going to whack the heating up to speed up decomposition, I'm not going to want anyone, if I did that in the bedroom, I'm not going to want the downstairs coming knocking 2 days in and go, something's coming through my ceiling.
Absolutely. That's the whole reason it was put in the bath, because those fluids were going down the plug hole.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so that is I'm 100%. Well, no, actually I can't say 100% because I weren't there. I am 99%.
But also as well, if it was some sort of erotic fantasy of his, he was so squashed in there. There's no room for any sort of play.
Yeah, exactly. No, I don't believe that at all.
Yeah.
And I think if he started feeling, oh my God, I actually can't get out, and I'm feeling like it's difficult to breathe, like you say, why would you not have some sort of fail safe where you knew you could get out?
The type of character he was, he would have, all of his family said that he would never have put himself in a situation that he wouldn't have planned for. He wouldn't have planned every eventuality. And then
I agree. Murder.
Yeah. Murder.
It's such a shame though, isn't it? Because it's against the government. So he's like, his family are never going to get that closure of or justice.
No. Never come out what happened.
Man.
Yeah.
Oh.
All right then.
Well, thanks for that. That was good.
You're welcome.
And I would like to hear what people think. Do you think it's murder? Do you think it's aliens?
Yeah. All right.
Thanks for that. Week. See you next time.
Bye. Born on the 26th of September 1978 in Wales. But he wasn't.
You went in what? Else.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that's how it was pronounced. What else?
Fucking hell.
Fucking hell.